to see my screen.
Yes.
Hi, hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. As we have folks joining all over the globe now, so I warmly welcome everyone to the India Apple Admins monthly meetup. Uh, Coming to myself, I'm Anil, so I'll be the host for this event, and happy to see you all join over the weekend. This always motivates us to come up with new event every month. Without further ado, let's go into the agenda for today. So we are going to have a small introduction about ourselves and our community, and we're not going to discuss any Apple or Jamf updates in this meetup, as this is a special event for us, and we are going to discuss about implementing Jamf Pro LAPS. And we have William Smith with us, who's going to take that. And about myself, uh, I'm Anil, and I have an experience of 10 years in IT industry, and I'm Jamf 200 certified. And I'm one of the new admins who was promoted to manage this group, and I'm very much excited about it. And those who all are joining for us for the first time, we are a Jamf community group in India, and we are there to support all the admins, and we have uh, a few members from around the globe as well. So this group has been started by our very own Mr. Salim Ukani. He's also known as Samster 777 in the community. He is a Jamf certified engineer, and he loves helping people. So that's the reason he has started this group. And he has an overall experience of 15 years in the Jamf and Mac and Windows platforms. You can always reach him in our Telegram group and also on the LinkedIn. There's a small QR code on your screen on the top left, which you can use to scan and connect with him on the LinkedIn if you wish. So apart from this, how can you join our community, like our Telegram group? So I'll give you a small QR code. So you can use this QR code and scan from your Telegram or your devices to join our community. We are always happy to welcome you guys to share knowledge and spread our wings across. So I'll just give a couple of seconds if any new guys are joining to scan this code. And coming to our main event for today, we have William Smith, also known as Bill, with us. He's also known as Talking Moose across the community. He's going to give us tips and tricks about implementing Jamf Pro LAPS. He is a partner program manager at Jamf with an experience of over 25 years supporting Macs and its users. In his current role in Jamf, he provides certification and training for partners, helping them leverage Jamf Pro. His extensive experience includes visiting hundreds of customers worldwide to develop tailored solutions for their unique challenges. He's a passionate educator, and his experience and expertise has been showcased in various events such as JNUC, MacAdmin, PSU, and Penn State MacAdmins, etc. He's also frequently delivering technical webinars to his support customers and making their explain the concepts and accessible and actionable. Let us give us a warm welcome to William Smith. Welcome, William.
Hey, William. Hey, William. Welcome.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you. Very
over to
much
you,
glad
Bill.
to be here. All right. I'm going to share my screen. Had to find it. There we go. All right. Hi, everyone. So let's talk about Jamf Pro Labs. What it is, how to use it, and maybe some better practices. I don't like saying best practices because nothing is perfect for everybody, so I call them better practices. And as Anila said, I'm William Smith. I'm a partner program manager here with Jamf. And I mainly work with outside consultants that we hire to deliver services such as Jamf Pro onboardings or Jamf Connect integrations on behalf of Jamf. So you can find me in several different online communities, almost always as Talking Moose. So on Jamf Nation, on MacAdmins, Slack, and on the Fediverse if you're a member of Mastodon or anything similar to that. Talking Moose. Here's what I'm going to cover. I'll start off with a brief overview and history for those of you who aren't familiar with LAPS and why it's important to our customers. Now that Jamf Pro 11.5 is released, most of our LAPS work is done. I'll discuss how to turn it on and how to use it. And LAPS wasn't always LAPS in Jamf Pro. Some of our customers are going to implement LAPS for the very first time. Others are going to be transitioning from the old features that did something else that eventually turned into LAPS. And there are things that we need to know before we choose how to implement it. That takes care of how it works. I'll also cover what I'd recommend for how to use it. And as time allows, we'll go into Q&A at the end. So let's get started. It's important to understand why there's a need for LAPS. First, LAPS isn't a piece of software like a package that we can install. It's not a command line tool built into macOS that we can control from Jamf Pro or any other kind of management system. And it's not a standard technical protocol with documented guidelines like DNS or TCP/IP that all computer platforms share to interoperate with each other. Instead, think of it as a concept, an idea, a workflow, or as the name itself says, a solution. LAPS stands for Local Administrator Password Solution. It's something Microsoft conceived for its customers back in 2015 to solve a complex security problem. Simply put, administrators were in the habit of adding the same administrator username and password account across their fleet of computers so that they could log in and manage them as needed. That's a problem for several reasons. First, it's the same name and same administrator username and password for all computers, regardless of whether it's a computer in accounting, marketing, design, or even belongs to the CEO. If those credentials were ever leaked, the entire fleet would be at risk. And it was easy to leak because multiple people knew those credentials. All it took was for one administrator to share them or write them on a sticky note that someone else could find. And there was no way to know which administrator used those credentials on any computer or why. It was pretty easy for any administrator to look at information on the CEO's computer. And if an administrator left the organization, the password on every computer had to be changed fast. Here's the solution Microsoft introduced. Note that none of this is talking about software. These are just the ideas for how to solve the problem. Administrators can still add an account to all of their computers, but the password on each computer must be unique. Instead of sharing passwords, store them in a secure place until they're actually needed. When an administrator actually does need the password and views that password, automatically log who used it and when. And finally, after any administrator views the password, automatically rotate it to a different unique password, and then store it securely until it's needed the next time. Again, none of this specifies what software to use, so long as you follow the idea, you can implement LAPS any way you'd like, and that's going to be important to know in just a little bit. Microsoft originally used Active Directory to store its LAPS passwords and allow access to them, and also to handle auditing and to take care of the password rotation. Late last year, they implemented LAPS in its internet-based Entra ID service. And several open source projects and commercial products support multiple computer platforms, including macOS. As of Jamf Pro 11.5, which we released just a little bit ago, we've pretty much finished our LAPS implementation. There may be a few minor tweaks to come, but for the most part, it's done, and we're going to continue to maintain it. So let's look at how we implement LAPS in Jamf Pro and see how to use it with any version of macOS. Every operating system that Jamf Pro supports will support LAPS because these are just normal macOS user accounts. We actually offer two types of LAPS management accounts. Now, while they both address the same problem and they offer the same solution, they do differ in one way: the technology behind the way we create the accounts and we rotate the passwords. Let's look at those four parts of the solution again. To accomplish number two, we simply store each computer's unique administrator password in Jamf Pro's database. That's simple enough. And for number three, we keep track of which Jamf Pro administrator requests to view a computer's administrator password, and we log the date and time. It's important to note here that there is no way for any administrator to alter that logging. The only way to delete the log is to actually delete the computer itself. Now, let's talk about the two different ways that Jamf Pro can create the administrator account and rotate those passwords. Each method has a slightly different benefit. The method a Jamf Pro administrator chooses to implement, or methods, because they could choose to implement both, depends on the benefits they find important. The first method uses the Jamf binary. That's the tool Jamf Pro installs on every computer as part of its Jamf management framework. We've installed this command line tool since Jamf Pro was known as Casper Suite, and it's still a critical component that allows Jamf Pro to do much of its management, including creating user accounts and changing passwords. So think of this as Jamf's technology. Now, the second method uses Apple's MDM specification. That's their management standard, and it's been part of the Casper Suite and later Jamf Pro 10 since 2010. It too can create an administrator account and change its password. So I want you to think of that as Apple's technology. Both of these are well-established technologies that Jamf Pro strongly supports, but let's look at a couple of things in these lists. The Jamf binary can't keep an open, persistent connection to its managed computers all the time. Instead, it relies on the computers to phone home about every 15 minutes by default. So that means when it's time to rotate the computer's LAPS password, there could still be a delay of several minutes before that actually happens. If the Jamf Pro administrator has set the check-in frequency to the highest possible setting of 60 minutes, it could be an hour before the password is actually rotated. Now that sounds problematic, but it may not be in the future. I can't really talk too much about those plans, but it could be that that concern becomes a moot point at some point. The Jamf binary can do something that Apple's MDM implementation doesn't currently do, and that is it can manage file vault passwords. So what does that mean? It means if I use the Jamf binary to create and manage LAPS, the computer's account can receive a secure token, and an administrator can unlock a file vault encrypted computer using the admin password. If I were to use Apple's MDM implementation, you can't enable LAPS for file vault. Now, that too kind of sounds problematic, but I need to keep in mind that my Jamf Pro server should really have a personal recovery key already set, which I can use to unlock file vault. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a little bit. Everything else, though, works the same. Now that I know that there's two methods for managing LAPS and their benefits and their limitations, let's see what it takes to turn it on and how to use it. First, let's look at managing LAPS using the Jamf binary. In Jamf Pro, I'll go to Settings and Computer Management, and I'm going to click Security. I'm going to click Edit, and now I'll scroll all the way down, and we have these three settings to consider. We can enable LAPS to create an account using Apple's mobile device management. I'll talk about that in just a moment. But more importantly, we want to set the rotation interval and the rotation after viewing interval. The first thing I want to point out is that because I'm choosing to use the Jamf binary, for managing labs, I don't need to enable this option. It's only if I want to use Apple's MDM method for managing labs. So I'm going to leave this unchecked. I have two other options here. The first option, rotation interval, is set to 1 day by default. That means every day, whether or not somebody views that Labs account password in Jamf Pro is going to rotate it. Now, I don't think that's really necessary to do every day, but for my security team's compliance requirements, I'll at least rotate it a couple of times a year. And then the second option, rotation after viewing interval, is set to 15 minutes. So what that means is as soon as someone views the password in Jamf Pro, it'll wait 15 minutes and then it'll send the command to rotate it. Now, I think 15 minutes might be a little bit too quick, especially if a desktop technician is troubleshooting a problem. So I'm going to bump this up to an hour. Now let's save these settings and let's go look at the second piece of this. I'm going to go back to my settings and then I'm going to go to global and then look for user initiated enrollment. Here I'm going to click edit and then look at my options for computers. I want to turn on create manage local administrator account. Now this used to be called the Jamf management account, but it's been repurposed for LAPS now. I need to specify a name for the administrator account and that I'll deploy to my computers, and I can choose whether to hide it from my end users in system settings. Keep in mind, if you choose to enable this account for File Vault, it won't be hidden on the File Vault login window after turning that on for the computer. So if you don't want people to see that, don't enable that for File Vault later. All right, again, if you're turning on File Vault, you should also be storing that personal recovery key in Jamf Pro. So I'd use that instead of turning on File Vault for Labs. From here, all I need to do is save. Every computer I enroll from this point forward will receive that LAPS management account. Now keep in mind, this won't put the LAPS account on computers that were already enrolled. I'll talk a little bit more about what we can do with that in a little bit. But what if I prefer to use Apple's mobile device management method to manage my LAPS account? Well, first I have to turn it on, then I need to add it to my pre-stage enrollment. So let's go back to settings and computer management, and we'll click security again. I'll click edit, and I'm going to scroll all the way down again. This time I'll select enable LAPS account for pre-stage accounts. Now be careful, this doesn't disable the other LAPS account managed by the Jamf binary. It's very possible to enable both, but you should really only use one or the other. A second admin account on a computer is just redundant, and it doesn't. It creates another account for a hacker maybe to try to compromise. So I'm going to save. Then I'm going to go to computers and scroll down. I'm going to go to pre-stage enrollments, and I'm going to edit my global pre-stage enrollment settings here. Under account settings, I'm going to click create a manage local administrator account during macOS setup assistant. Now this account is created during the setup assistant, whereas the Jamf binary account is created after the first user logs into the computer. That's not really important, but it's good to understand if you're having to troubleshoot something on the computer. I'm going to put in the same name, same management account username that I specified for the Jamf binary, and I'm going to specify a password too. But this password isn't really that important because Jamf Pro is just going to change it to a random password as soon as the computer's enrolled. Just like the other LAPS account, I'll choose to hide it and click save, and I'm prompted to confirm my settings. Uh-oh. this is important right here. Yes, you can enable both the Jamf binary and the mobile device management labs accounts, but Jamf Pro won't let you use the same username for both of them. That's because we don't want to have two different methods managing one account. That would cause problems. So I'm just going to change the name of this account to something slightly different. And now I can save. Just like the Jamf binary, only computers enrolled from this point forward will get that lapse management account. Even if I had existing computers that were enrolled using these pre-stage enrollment settings, this won't retroactively turn on lapse for them. So then, how can I turn lapse on for existing computers? Well, we have to re-enroll them. Enrollment is the only time Jamf Pro will add a management account. So fortunately, we have both MDM and Jamf binary commands for re-enrolling computers. So let's quickly talk about what you need to know about MDM lapse. This assumes I'm going back into my pre-stage enrollment and turning on the option to create a managed local administrator account. That's just what I showed you how to do. And here's what the command looks like. It's profiles renew -type enrollment. Great. Now, how do we send that command to our computers that need re-enrolling? You can't. At least not without unenrolling the computer first, which I strongly discourage. This re-enrollment method has a few problems. First, you can definitely use Jamf Pro to send this command to the computer and it will respect it. However, it requires somebody sitting in front of the computer to complete this command. It's interactive, and Jamf Pro can't work around that. Second, even if you did have somebody sitting in front of the computer to complete that command, Jamf Pro still doesn't add the administrator account from the pre-stage enrollment. It only adds the account during the setup assistant, which we don't see when we're running this command. And finally, even re-enrolling this way doesn't update the computer record, the computer record's last enrollment date in Jamf Pro. We have no good way of even knowing that anything really even happened. Okay, so what about the Jamf binary method? The lapse method that creates the managed local administrator account specified in user-initiated enrollment. Here's what that command looks like. So it's a little bit longer and a little bit more complex, and it requires that we generate an enrollment invitation. However, this is the way. Hope some of you like Star Wars Mandalorian. Here's why I recommend it. Again, you can definitely use Jamf Pro to send an enroll command and the computer will respect it, and it requires no interaction on the computer. Second, if a Jamf Pro administrator sets that lapse account in user-initiated enrollment and then re-enrolls the computer will get that new account. Third, it will update the last enrollment date in Jamf Pro's computer record, which means we have a way of knowing it did complete the new enrollment. And what's even better is you can use this command to re-enroll a computer even if it was initially enrolled using a pre-stage enrollment. It doesn't affect inventory items like the enrollment method, where you can report whether it was enrolled using a pre-stage enrollment or user-initiated enrollment. It'll continue to report that it was initially enrolled using a pre-stage enrollment. So I need to point out two things. This does require a separate inventory update to make sure that Jamf Pro is aware that the lapse account was created. Now, I'm not going to go into details here, but that really requires that we have a script to make this as quick and as efficient as possible. So I just happen to have one that I'll point you to in just a little bit. Now that I've configured lapse on new and existing computers, I can start using it. So it's pretty simple. If I'm a desktop technician and need to do something on an end user's computer that requires administrator privileges, Either I or someone with Jamf Pro access can locate the computer record and scroll down just to a little bit to verify that it does have a LAPS account available. Here it does. Here, I see an account managed using the Jamf binary. That's the one from my user-initiated enrollment settings. Now remember, I might see the administrator account from the pre-stage enrollment here as well. So while I don't recommend it, it's possible to enable both of them. I'm going to click that link to view the accounts and passwords, and I'm really just being taken down to the local accounts payload here in the same computer record. So you're really not changing the view here. At the top, I find the name of the account that I can use, and I see the source of the account is the Jamf binary. I'm going to click the button to view the password, and here I see a notification that as soon as I view it, I have 1 hour until Jamf Pro rotates that password. I have that long to troubleshoot. If it takes longer than that, I'm going to need to come back and get the updated password. Now don't forget, because this administrator account is managed using the Jamf binary, and depending on my check-in frequency settings, it might take up to another hour for that computer to actually check in with Jamf Pro and actually rotate the password. When I click continue, I see the password and the clock starts ticking. I can click the button to the right to copy the password to my clipboard, where I can use it however I need. I can use Terminal to SSH into the computer across the network. I can use Apple Remote Desktop to send a command, or I can even use Jamf Remote Assist. I'll only need the password when I'm prompted by something that requires elevated privileges, administrator privileges. Let's look at that password for a moment. Now, I said earlier, it's a 30-character password. You're going to notice a few things about it. First, it's a mix of letters, numbers, and dashes, no other symbols. But the dashes are important. That's part of the password. So you need to include them when typing the password. Next, all the letters are uppercase. So make this easy on yourselves. Just push caps lock when you're typing the password. And if you're like me, and you kind of question sometimes whether those letters are capital O's or zeros, they could be either, but when in doubt, paste the password into a text editor and change the font to something that's like a monospace font that clearly shows the difference between O's and zeros. And the last piece of those 4 items make up the LAPS solution is auditing. I need to know who viewed and when. So under the History tab, I'm going to click the Manage Local Administrator Account, History Payload. There we go. And I'm going to click Manage Local Administrator Account History for that computer. I see not only who and when, but whether the password was rotated automatically, or if it was viewed or is pending rotation. So that's it. That's how LAPS works in Jamf Pro. But before I finish up, let's talk a little bit about how we provide computer support as desktop technicians or desktop administrators. I want to cover some better practices. We really shouldn't be needing to use a computer's LAPS account very often. If you're using it a lot, you're probably doing something wrong. I really encourage you to think about why and when you're actually using any IT administrator account, and to look at ways to minimize your need to act locally on the computer. Oops, let me go back here. And there we go. Sorry, tapped the wrong slide. So you have a Jamf Pro account. You have Jamf Pro. Use it to manage your fleet centrally and to stay as hands-off as possible with your computers. This is just wise use of your time. And it also protects you and your end users' privacy and security. The LAPS account's password is purposely long, and you can't control its length or its complexity. the account is not something you should be using for daily support. Making it convenient for yourself also makes it convenient for a bad actor to use. And I strongly suggest that you don't turn on FileVault for LAPS accounts. Instead, unlock computers using escrowed personal recovery key, which you should already have in your Jamf Pro computer record. And the LAPS account is integrated or is intended for use in the field while working with end users, not while you're doing long-term troubleshooting or repairs or upgrades. If you need a working account while a computer is in your possession, create a temporary account and then you can just simply delete it before returning the computer to the end user. And I'm going to say it again. Any administrator account, not just the LAPS account, should be inconvenient to use to keep you from using it more often than you absolutely need. All right, I'll get off my soapbox now. I didn't cover all the things with Jamf Pro LAPS just because of time, but I do want to make sure that I mention a few other things here. To begin with, a full Jamf Pro administrator can restrict who's allowed to view those LAPS accounts' passwords. That means I can restrict an IT group like the help desk technicians from viewing passwords while allowing my desktop support technicians to view passwords. And I can further limit who's allowed to audit access to LAPS accounts to just Jamf Pro admins. So for this to work as designed, I need each Jamf Pro user to log in with their own unique account. No one should ever be sharing credentials to log into Jamf Pro. And furthermore, I need to make sure only specific Jamf Pro administrators can even edit user accounts themselves. The last thing we want is for somebody to be able to create another account, log in as that account, view the password, log out, and then delete the account, destroying all the evidence. So you need to limit who can actually create accounts in Jamf Pro. All right, I mentioned earlier that you can use the Jamf binary to re-enroll computers, and that's best done with a script. I have a script posted, and it's available to anyone. So use this Jamf IT URL with laps-re-enroll, and it'll take you to my GitHub gist, and instructions are in the script itself. It works by using a policy to re-enroll computers, and remember, it doesn't matter if they were originally enrolled using a pre-stage enrollment or user-initiated enrollment. It works for both. It then creates a launch daemon that simply updates the inventory in Jamf Pro. Now I have to do that because re-enrollment changes something called the device signature on the computer, and that prevents the policy from reporting back to Jamf Pro. So I could wait until the next inventory update, but that might be up to a week or more. But a warning though, if you're scoping anything based on information populated in the user and location section of a computer record, that information might get overwritten, which may cause problems with some of your scoping. So check that out, test it first, make sure that it doesn't interfere with any of your scoping. If it doesn't, you're good to go. Unfortunately, Jamf doesn't have any great ways to re-enroll computers without something being affected. Now, I can manage everything I showed you today using the Jamf Pro API. In fact, all the API work that was done in earlier releases of Jamf Pro starting more than a year ago. And what you see in the GUI today is actually built on that work. So if you were testing LAPS in the API, be sure to update your scripts to the workflows to the V2 endpoints. And there's also one thing the API offers that's not in the GUI. That allows you, a Jamf Pro administrator, to actually set the password for a computer instead of having to use that random 30-character password. And I'm glad it's only in the Jamf Pro GUI because, as I said before, the LAPS account should really only be convenient, or should always be inconvenient to use, to avoid using it more than necessary. If you're limiting your use of local administrator accounts on your end users' computers, you're doing it right. All right. As I mentioned earlier, LAPS is going to strengthen security and privacy, both for you and your end users. All of our customers should begin adopting this as soon as they can. But so I guess that's everything that I've got for you today. I've covered a lot of things. Let's see if any of you have any questions.
Thanks for that.
All right. Yeah.
Any more questions, guys? Okay, I think that's a no. So thank you very much, William. Thank you on behalf of everyone in our community, and we hope like you come again on our monthly meetups and share your knowledge with us and your expertise. Thanks again. Sam, you want to add?
Come back. Thank you.
Thanks, William. Great content, great clarity, and we are more than happy to have you here again. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, guys, for joining on a Saturday morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Bye.
everyone. Thank you, William.